All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Aparo's Nonprofit Bites and Insights. This is our free webinar series that we have on a monthly basis, specifically tailored for nonprofit professionals like yourselves. Today, we are doing Power BI 2.0. We have Sid returning, I believe it was maybe 5 months ago, maybe a little bit more, when he came and did our intro to Power BI. So we had a few folks ask for a follow-up for the next level. So he has graciously come back to give us that second level. But before I turn it over to him, a few housekeeping details. I am recording this session. All of you attending live will receive a direct link to the recording as well as slide deck, resources we talk about today. In a minute, I will go through the attendance list. If there are any AI tools that I see, I'm going to pull them out. Just per our policy, we don't allow AI tools into our space, into our webinar space. And then Q&A and chat box are available for you to use, so feel free to drop in your questions at any time throughout our conversation today. Really quickly, for those of you who are new to Aparo, we are a nonprofit in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we help other nonprofits with any of their technology needs and challenges. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website. But I believe most of us on our call today are actually familiar with Aparo, so I'm going to go ahead and keep moving forward. There is one event I do want to highlight. If you haven't already participated in our website user experience evaluation, this might be a really great opportunity. In late July, I want to say, there it is, July 29th, we're going to do an in-person website user experience assessment with Truist employees. So if you've ever had the need for folks to come into your website, they're going to take the persona of different, like a donor, a client, general public, and they'll come in and they'll assess your website and give you a scorecard. If that's something of interest, this will be a great opportunity to participate in. But if you are outside the Charlotte area, still sign up because there are opportunities for virtual sessions as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. And that is it for me. Gonna ahead and stop sharing and turn it over to Sid.
Sounds good. Thank you, Yenting. Let me share my screen and let me know when you are able to see my screen. You should see a
Yes, I
big,
see your PowerPoint.
yeah, perfect. Right.
There it is. Yep.
All right. Yeah, so thanks again, Yenting, and thank you to Aparo for this opportunity. My name is Sid Dixit, principal architect at CopperPoint. I've been with Aparo since last 2 years, helping with several tech therapy sessions as well as knowledge sessions with Aparo. And then, I gave Power BI 1.0, like Yenting mentioned, 5 months back, where we talked about essentials of Power BI, um, why Power BI is important for nonprofit organizations, and we touched upon basic Power BI concepts like how do you build your graphs, how do you write, how do you do transformation, how do you clean the data and make it ready for Power BI, right? Uh, this session is going to be an extension of the last session. We're still going to touch some of those basic concepts, but we are going to take it to the next levels. What we are going to talk about in this session is some really deep concepts, right? So I'm going to keep it very slow, still, take very simple examples and explain it to you. But we are going to cover very, deep concepts such as data modeling, right? How do you model your data as a nonprofit organization? And how do you kind of share the Power BI reports to executives, right? So where we left off last time, of course, Power BI for nonprofits, we gave an intro of Power BI. Power BI is free. The license is free. Anybody can use it as long as they're using the desktop version. But but there is a premium tier as well. If you want to pay for that subscription, it has nonprofit discounts available as well. So once you are in the premium subscription, you are able to share your Power BI reports within your organization and even outside your organization. And you could have like live running visualizations, running that you can share across your executive leadership or across all your stakeholders. So premium license is something that I highly recommend, but those who are just starting off, they can start with the free version, no problem. You could build your end-to-end dashboards using the free version. And I'm going to use the free version itself, but I'm going to show you some of the premium tier capabilities in a little bit, right? Um, yeah, so we talked about basic charts, formulas, filtering, and we talked about a little bit about DAX. So we're going to extend that. We're going to talk about some more advanced measures. We're going to talk about Power Query. And of course, we're going to talk about data modeling. And then finally, how do you share your dashboards or reports to your stakeholders is something that I'm going to touch upon, right? So this is the level two. Level one was giving you the driving license, uh, making you learn how to drive. Level two is to let you drive on a freeway, right? With your own Power BI too, and your own data, right? That's my goal of this presentation. Okay. So before we jump into the level two stuff, let me talk about my kind of way of handling data and reports within my organization. And the way I do it is I have kind of a structured way to build reports, right? I have kind of segregated that into uh, layers, right? The first layer is your raw layer, which contains your actual data, which is split into, let's say, CSVs. It could be your data living in SharePoint. It could be your data. If you have a database, it could be a database as well, right? Or it could be some, flat files sitting in your laptop or your, shared drive within your organization, right? The second step is to clean the data. And this is highly critical for Power BI, for building reports, right? Unless you have clean data, you will not be able to generate good reports. And your reports might be kind of misleading if you don't have clean data. So Power BI has features that allows you to clean and transform data. So once you start building your Power BI uh, reports, the first step of the process is to import the data and clean the data so that you don't have bad data imported in your report, right? So that's where we're going to show you how you can clean and standardize the data, and that's what I call silver layer, right? And then finally, the report layer, which is the gold layer, where you actually build those metrics, DAX, aggregates, which is going to be shared with the stakeholders, right, within your organization or even outside of that, right? And then finally, kind of the diamond, what I call is a diamond layer, is probably the actual reports being shared to various stakeholders. You might be sharing specific reports to specific audiences. So that diamond layer will allow you to kind of split those reports to specific audiences, catered to specific audiences, right? So that is how I structure it when I approach reporting within Power BI. But the key here is building clean data, because without data, your reports are going to be error prone. Your reports are going to be, something that will not give you true value, right? So this is the way we approach building reports, right? Now let's talk about data modeling, right? As we talk about building your clean data, right? So data modeling, think of it, as something that where you build relationships with data, right? How do you tie each of these data attributes together, right? Uh, within nonprofit organizations, I've seen uh, people working with a single spreadsheet with a lot of data, a lot of messy data. But the goal here is to kind of split the data into some of these, attributes and build relationships out of them. So in this diagram, what you see is something known as star schema. What star schema is, you have one central location where you record things, right? So basically, this is your central table. It's called fact table, and you record everything here as it happens. For example, you have a donation campaign happening. You're going to record everything here in this central table called donation table, called fact table, right? And then you have several dimensions that exist that connect to this fact table, right? So each of these dimensions are the things that exist within your whole nonprofit ecosystem, right? You would have donors within your nonprofit organization. You would have programs, or you would have campaigns within your nonprofit organization, for example. So what you do is build a central master table, which is going to be a fact, which is going to be which can be a master CSV file, and then you could build multiple one-to-many relationship with your you know, other attributes that exist within your organization. One to many between campaigns, one to many between programs, one to many between donors, right? So yeah, and you don't need database to do all of that, right? All of that can be done, using simple Excel sheets or CSV files, right? So the beauty of doing that is if you want to make changes to this, it's easier to maintain. You kind of make changes in one place and it propagates to the other places, right? Because of the relationship that we have established. And we are going to see that how this translates into an actual report and how this relationship is actually valuable when you're building the report, right? Any new data source, you could just connect it here. As long as you have a central fact table, you should be able to kind of build a relationship with that and connect it to your donations fact table, right? Any new data source, you will be able to add that, right? Right. And it's a way to kind of organize your data so that you can build reports, start building reports out of it, right? And it's easier to kind of search and look up data in this model as well, right? Um, right. This allows you to kind of record any data pretty easily and kind of relate them with all of these entities, right? Right. So this is one of the standard ways in which we build data warehouses also, right? In if you have like a big organization and you have like a lot of data, a lot of organizations build their data warehouse, which feeds their reporting platform. And they also kind of do something like this, where they build their warehouse using something known as a star schema design, where these entities kind of relate to each other using one-to-many relationships. All right. The next thing that we're going to touch upon is Power Queries, right? So Power Query is, allows you to record whatever changes you're doing to your data, right? It is going to allow you to kind of record those changes and, even propagate those changes across multiple files as well. And we are going to see that live in action as well, right? We are going to see something known as merge queries. So we can join two different tables which have shared columns. And it is kind of an advanced way of doing VLOOKUP that you do in Excel sheets. If you're using Excel sheets, there is a concept called VLOOKUP to look up a particular column from a different table and kind of join them together, right? So it's a more advanced concept than that. And I'm going to walk you through how you can do that, right? Yeah, and how do you kind of replicate? So you are dealing with several files, right? And how, if you're making change, and most of these files are kind of similar in terms of the number of columns, and they actually deal with similar kind of data. For example, you have multiple files with monthly kind of donors, right, who have donated every month, right? Now you want to clean the data for all of these files. You're not going to go into individual files and just clean them, right? Power BI actually allows you to reuse the steps that you have performed in a single file across multiple files. And we're going to see that too. Like, how do you kind of reuse the transformation that you've done in a single file across several files, several hundred files, for example, right? It can easily do that, and it can allow you to replicate the data cleaning measures that you've taken in a particular file into others, right? Then, you could connect your files and folders and with your local file system as well as through SharePoint, and you can schedule a refresh as well as you could refresh it in a particular interval, or you could do a real-time refresh as well. If you're connected to SharePoint and if your files live in SharePoint, you would be able to do real-time refreshes if your data is connected to SharePoint. But if you have it stored in a drive in your laptop, you could actually schedule a refresh using a Power BI product called Gateway as well. So we will probably touch upon that a little bit, but we are not going to demo that. All right. Right. So measures, right? Measures, allow you to calculate aggregates, calculate, stuff within your columns, right? For example, here we are calculating the donation amount, total donations from an amount column, right? So measures is similar to how you kind of do calculations within Excel. But you can do much more advanced calculation, right? An advanced calculation is something like wherever the donation frequency is monthly, calculate the amount donated. So you could write an expression like this, right? And then you would have like something known as total giving by date. So you would actually calculate the totals by date as well, right? Those are the things you could kind of do with measure, right? You could actually perform advanced calculations using a single column attribute and uh, you know combining two or more attributes from different tables and different columns. We're going to see that step by step in the demo that I'm going to show, right? We are going to see something known as drill through. You click on something on a report. This is what people actually see in the report. When you click it, it goes to a particular screen. It goes to a particular location within the report, right? You have tooltips, you have slicers that can filter data based on certain attributes. When you click on the slicer, it is going to filter it based on a particular attribute and show you the data corresponding to that filter, right? So all of these things we are going to cover here in this 2.0 session, right? Yeah, and then how do you share it? Like I mentioned, you build it within your Power BI desktop application, which is free. Build your own star model. You build your measures. You publish it. You would need a nonprofit licensing through Microsoft to publish it in a shared workspace. But you need a premium license for that. The free desktop version will not allow you to share it, right? And then how do you schedule a refresh? Basically, you would have a way to schedule a refresh from your local drive to the place where you've published it, which is in Power BI web, right? So all of that is possible through the premium license of Power BI. With the free version, you can kind of do everything with the reporting, and you can share the report in the form of PDF to your stakeholders. But the problem that you might run into as you scale is you might start dealing with multiple versions, and you're not 100% sure what version you are working with. You incorrectly share a wrong version to your stakeholder. So I highly recommend that you kind of move towards the premium licensing tier, so that you have a central source of truth, a single place where you are making the changes, where the changes are updated, and all of your team and all of the folks within your organization will have access to that central location. Right? These are some of the best practices. Basically, you need to the goal is to keep it very simple, max 3 to 5 visuals per page. Otherwise, it seems very cluttered, right? So that's the goal. That should be your goal for building the dashboard. You could actually build multiple tabs, and that's what I'm going to show in the walkthrough. You could build multiple tabs and separate them out for different audiences, but the goal is to keep it very simple, right? Consistent coloring suited like that matches your organization's branding color. um, you know what is the audience, right? The board might see a different outcome and trend. Your program staff might see a different kind of, they want to see a different kind of operational details, right? So you need to know your audience to whom you're sharing this with, right? And, you need to have your KPIs, your key performance indicators. Highly recommend that to put it in the top where your biggest KPIs should be represented right in the beginning on top, and the rest of your graphs and the charts, pie charts, line charts, all can stay below that, right? So these are some of the best practices, right? And you can split it into multiple pages where each page can serve for answering just a single question, right? So these are some of the best practices that you can follow while building it, right? Not to overcomplicate it. Have two or three graphs, two K or three KPIs per page, and kind of, if it is more, then you split it into multiple pages, right? Yeah, and then you probably need some kind of governance also, right? In terms of how you are naming the columns, which is pretty critical. It needs to be pretty meaningful. So when you build your data, you need to kind of have your, naming conventions uh, correct. Like it should be pretty meaningful to you, right? Or within your organization. There's no hard limits or rules for it, as long as you give it a friendly name that suits your your standards within your organization. I think you should be covered. But I think the key here is to put some stress on building the naming conventions of what the report does, and what the column names mean, and all of that. Some of the nonprofit organizations build something known as data dictionary, where they list down all the column attributes, all the key attributes, and define them in a separate tab in an Excel sheet, right? Which allows you to kind of trace back what a particular column means, right? So I would, I recommend doing that as well. Completely optional, but you can do that too, right? Of all of the measures that you build. Measures are formulas. You don't want to build a formula and then forget about it later, right? You need to understand what the formula means, right, to you, right? So good documentation around what formulas you have. Probably create one documentation on the report explaining the formulas, how they're calculated, what is the data source, and what we are trying to achieve, right? So documenting the reports is pretty critical. So and then finally is how do you share the data? Uh, is the data secure while storing it? You don't want sensitive data to be shared outside your organization. As long as you're using the best practices of saving the data, not sharing personal information outside of your organization, I think you should be covered, right? You don't have to worry about all of that, right? So making sure you have these small guardrails in place, and it is better to have them kind of documented within your organization. And that's going to help you kind of stick to those guardrails as you build and share the reports, right? All right. Some more best practices, you know, uh, you have your data is not clean is one of the standard kind of issues that we see, right? Broken dates, emailing the Power BI files to stakeholders. Some folks may not even have Power BI installed. So if you're just emailing the Power BI file, which the raw file has an extension of PBIX, they won't be able to open it. So when you share it, you need to kind of either use the sharing capability of the premium version, or if you don't have the premium version, then you could share the PDF version, right? yeah, no, we run into dashboard sprawl as well. So the goal is to just keep it simple, like I mentioned, just keeps, split, have some small KPIs, dashboards per page, and keep the number of pages small, right? Right. And then the scheduled refresh that you are trying to set up within your organization needs to be tested out, how the refresh is happening. I've seen nonprofit organizations that I've worked with in tech therapy sessions. They would make changes to the files, but those results may not be reflected within their Power BI dashboard, right? So they would reach out asking why it was not refreshed, right? So as long as you have this refresh cycle scheduled and maybe set up some alerting around it, you should be able to kind of know when it was refreshed, right? So we recommend them to kind of schedule it. There is for to schedule a refresh from your laptop or from your personal device to Power BI Web. There is a gateway, file gateway product provided by Power BI. You just install it and then you schedule it. So that requires a little bit of, additional steps to do that. But if you're using SharePoint, it is either real time or you can kind of schedule your refresh by yourself, right? So, so now we are going to talk about the platform walkthrough. We are going to take a concrete example, and then we are going to kind of build a Power BI dashboard with all the concepts that we talked about, right? Building those tabs, those KPIs, measures, writing queries. How do you replicate the data, replicate the cleanup across multiple files? How do you build the relationship? The star schema is all we are going to kind of discuss, right? So let's jump into it. Um, I'm going to close this. And let me show you what I had in the last session, right? So in the last session, we had built something like this, where we had uh, some of the key performance indicators with the uh, with the sample data, with donations, right? But we built a single page, right? Here we are going to kind of build multiple pages and we are going to see how we link them together, right? And we built some tables in the last time we built these tables, we cleaned the data, but we never built any relationships between them, right? Um, we just built these tables, built measures, and built kind of the graphs and KPIs based on that, right? So it was pretty straightforward, right? So the first thing I'm going to start with how you publish it, right? So the way to publish the data is there is already a publish button that you can click. It is going to ask you to save the changes. And once you hit publish, it is going to ask you to select a workflow space. Now, since I have the premium tier license, I'm able to directly select my workspace and since I had already published it previously, I'm going to replace it and it's going to publish it. And you will be able to, when you click that, you will be able to open the dashboard in web, right? And it's going to open the same dashboard on a web page. And you could actually set alerts based on that. You could share this within the people in your organization. Folks can subscribe to it so that they can see the changes, right? All of that can be done. When you click share, you can actually provide a link which you can email to your stakeholders, and they can just go to the link, open it in the browser, and be able to look at the data, right? So that is how you kind of share it, right? Now let's start with a blank slate. I have sample data here that I curated for this walkthrough, right? So I have separate CSV files for donors, campaigns, and we are going to see how they look like. Donations. I have a separate date table. Now, this is pretty important. If you want to kind of, uh, if you want to build your reports by year and by date, it is critical to create something known as date table. And it is nothing but if I open this date table, It is nothing but your, dates kind of mentioned by year, by quarter, right? So it is when you build your data model, it is kind of critical to build a date table and mark that as a date table so that you can tie this to your business objectives, right? And we're going to see that, right? So let me open a Power BI desktop version, and we're going to import some of this data and start visualizing it, right? So yeah, I have the Power BI desktop opened. Now I'm going to start with a blank report, right? In the blank report, we are going to load the data. That is the first step. So I'm going to click here, get data from other source. In my case, it's a CSV file. I'm going to connect and I'm going to select, let's start with donations, right? So I'm going to click donations. And when you click open, and you have to do this one at a time because for each you have like corresponding actions you can take, right? So this is going to load the data. So I'm just going to simply load the data for this. So this is our donations.csv. So it's going to load that. Let's load another data again. Let's load some more data. There is an option called get data here, text.csv. And then let's load donors, which contains donor information, donor contact information. I'm going to load that as well. Let's load the rest of the stuff as well. Programs, load the data. Let's load campaigns. And the small table, so we don't have just 5 campaigns. And then we are going to load the date table, okay? So we have loaded a total of 5 tables now, right? Now so once we have loaded that, there is a view on your right-hand side panel called model view. And that's where we are going to build the star schema that we talked about. So by default, Power BI might look at the data and sound smart and build a relationship by itself, right? You don't want to go that route because you want to build your relationships by yourself, right? You want to build your many-to-one relationships by yourself. So these are all your tables, and Power BI, if you can see these lines, it has tried to build these relationships on its own based on making an intelligent guess about the data. But we don't want that. We want it to be done the way it should be, right? So what I'm going to do is just delete these, right? And start with a clean slate, right? And in the star schema, we know that donations is going to be your central fact table, right? And we have all of these IDs here, which kind of map some of these, right? So donor has something known as a donor ID, and this donations table also has a donor ID. So what I'm going to do is map the donor ID with the donor ID in the donations table. So all you have to do is drag and drop, and it creates one-to-many relationship. So when you click save, you're going to see an arrow with your donor ID from donors table to your donations table. So it is creating one-to-many relationship. And we're going to see what it means when we start building the reports, right? Similarly, for programs, you have something known as program ID, and here you have a program ID as well. So we are going to drag and drop that too, and hit save, right? So it's going to create your program with program ID. Campaign ID also is one of the key attributes. I'm going to drag and drop it here and hit save. So it creates a relationship, one-to-many relationship with campaign. You can look at these arrows and kind of see which ID it is kind of tied to. And you need to have your data kind of built in such a way so that you have these IDs created for you within your CSV files, right? So we have donors created, programs created, campaigns created, all connected to donations. The date table has a date column. So I'm going to kind of map it with the date in donations table, right? One to many, right? And this goes with the date column. And then what I need to do is I need to mark this table as a date table. So there is an option saying mark as date table within this, right? So I'll just mark it as a date table, right? And it'll ask you to choose a date column. I'm going to just select the date as the date column, right? So once you do that, it identifies this as a date table, which is going to tie all the dates with all the specific donations that have happened in a particular date, all the donors, all the campaigns, all of that will be tied together. So this is an example of a star schema, if you see. So that's how you build your data model, right? You have your central fact table, and then you have all these, dimensions that you connect to using IDs to your fact table, right? And that's what we saw in the slide as well, right? We build these relationships and they are all going to be tied to each other, right? Okay, so that's how you build your data model, right? You have all of these all tied to a single donations table, which is going to be mapped to all of these with IDs, right? So the next step is we are going to now try to clean the messy data, right? So I have another set of data, which is donations export May 2023, which shows the donations that have happened in May, right? So I'm going to open this, get this data, and I'm going to transform this data because I know that we have recorded it, but the data might not be clean. So there is an option called transform data, and it's going to open a new window where you can actually clean the data, right? Now, here, now if you notice we have loaded this data, we will try to clean this data. So here, if you notice, there are cases, some uppercase somewhere, lowercase somewhere. We can actually fix that by doing a transform, and then we can do a transform here. First, we will do a trim because we don't know if there are any trailing spaces or anything like that. So it's always a good practice to do trim. And then here, we can just do capitalize each word. That will make everything with first letter as capital, like it makes it in a proper case for this data, right? So that's what we did with the frequency, right? Now we are gonna look at the payment method. We are gonna trim it again, just like that, right? So that it doesn't have any spaces before or after. And then here also we are gonna do capitalize each word, right? So that it is consistent, right? Yeah. Or maybe it looks good because I don't want to capitalize it because it has ACH. So maybe it looks good as it is. So just trim is fine for this. Let's not capitalize it, right? Okay, so next one is we are gonna do, once we have done that, we have the date attribute here. And then again, with the date attribute, we can change the type of the date attribute and make sure that the date is consistent, and just select the attribute as date, English United States, and make sure that the date is clean, right? So now, if you notice that when whatever you have done here is actually being tracked as the steps you have done on this particular file, right? Right? So now we are going to try to do this with a different file. Maybe for the June file also, I want to perform similar kind of step, right? So there is an option here to duplicate it, right? When you duplicate it, it's going to create a duplicate table with similar kind of data, but you could actually change the source of the data and select something known as your June's data, right? So once you select that and click OK, it is gonna execute all of those steps with the June data. So if you notice in the June data, we did not have, we had issues with the data, right? So it is going to kind of replicate all of those steps with the June data as well, right? So in the same way, and then let me rename that to June 2026. So in the same way, you could actually duplicate these steps and connect to a different data source, and it is going to kind of apply all of the steps that you did with your original data source, right? And in the same way, you can replicate all of that across different files. So that's how you're going to kind of replicate it, right? So we did that. Now there's a feature to append this data, so we are going to select that. We are going to do something known as append queries, and you can append it all of this data to something known as your donation state. So what it is going to do is combine all of this data, and it is going to push it to the donations table, right? So when I click that, it's going to append it, and then yeah, we'll just apply it, and it is going to kind of load it into our donations table. So once we have the data cleaned, all of this data, when we click close and apply, will go into our donations table with the clean data once we do an append here. So append queries takes data from multiple tables and loads it to a different table. So when I click close and apply, it's going to load our donations table with the data. We can actually look at the data, donations data, and it will contain a combination of data from both the June and July tables, right? Similarly, you could do merge as well, something known as merge. So we are going to open a new CSV. Event attendance CSV, which marks the attendance during a particular campaign or an event. We are going to transform this data as well. And there is an option known as merge queries. When you click that, you can actually merge it with a different table, right? So for example, donors table has an email and this has an attendee email. You could merge it so that you could tie it with a particular donor. And the way we are joining it is using something, if a data is not present here, if in this table, if an email address doesn't match, it is going to replace it with no by default, right? So this is how we kind of join it together. When we click OK, it actually merges and joins the table together, right? What it means is it is going to look at those two tables, the donors table, and then it actually marks them yes and no based on the donors table, right? So we are just going to click close and apply. All right. All right. So now the data is clean. We have all these data built up, the relationships built up. Now the next step of the process is how do we build your key performance indicators, right? So let's start with the first measure. So the way you do that, and we touched upon that in the last Power BI session as well, we create measures, right? So let's not create it here. Let's create a new measure in your donations table, right? And I want to sum all the donation amounts, and that will be my key performance indicator. So I'm going to click this table right here, and then click new measure, and then paste the formula. Just bring it up a little bit, and it is going to sum the total donation amount, right? So once the measure is created, all you would have to do is pick something known as a card, right? And once you have a measure created in your donors, in your donations table, all you have to do is drag and drop this measure, right? And you will have your total amount of donations that have happened, right, as a key performance indicator. You could actually change the data type of this as currency so that it gives you the dollar amount. In the same way, we can create some more measures that we talked about. Year to Yeah. So maybe something, no, let's do something with which says, how do we calculate what was given this year versus last year? For that, I'm going to create another measure, and we are going to call it giving versus last year. Again, it calculates the total with what was there in the last year. And we will again create a card quickly. Just click that, place it here, and then drag and drop this, and it's going to give you. So we have received 30K versus last year is what this attribute shows. All we will have to do is format it into um, a decimal. Oh, sorry, a currency. It needs to be a currency, not decimal, right? So it needs to be a currency. So now it
A really
shows.
quick time check. We're at 13 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So we're gonna quickly build a particular graph out of it. I'm just gonna quickly start building a particular graph. So let's build something known as a line chart real quick. I'm just gonna click the line chart. Control T. I'm going to start with a blank slate, click a line chart here. Here, what I want to show is um, um, by year and month, what is the amount of donation that have happened, right? So in this, I'm gonna, from my donations table in the x-axis, in the y-axis, I'm gonna place the total giving, means the total amount, and and on the x-axis, we are gonna, from the date table, we are gonna give the year month in the x-axis, right? So once you do that, if you see, we have tied two tables together. Since they have relationship between them, you would see the year month by month donation, and you will see a spike that you can see a spike here in around December timeframe, right? So total giving by year, right? Um, okay, yeah. And then you could also build something known as a bar chart here. So I'm just going to create a quick bar chart in this area. And then here, we are going to have total giving, and by program, right? So we are going to just do a program name from the programs table. We'll go to the programs table and drag and put program in the y-axis. So what here we are doing is by program, what is the total donation? So we didn't have to calculate anything. Since we have the relationship already built out, it was able to kind of do that. And you could actually drill it down automatically. It is going to reflect by program name. Since the relationships are already built out, you can actually kind of drill everything down together and it will reflect those values. So all you need is kind of those relationships built out. And once you start tying these pieces together, you will be able to build the relationship. This is an example of how you build the dashboard, right? The reports, right? The other thing that I want to touch upon is drill through. Like, how do you get to specific drilled data point, right? So I'm gonna kind of create another tab here, right? And here I'm gonna add drill through fields. So let me show you what it does with drill through, right? So um, so I'm just gonna drag program name in my drill through target, uh, right? So what that means is when the program name is clicked, it is going to show you details related to the program, right? So now it's a matter of creating some key performance indicators here, and that will be used as a drill through for uh, uh, for your program. So when you click on a program name, it will drill to a specific data, and you're going to see that in action. So real quick, we can create a couple of visuals here. Let's start with a card. We will just call it total giving for this card. We are just going to add total giving here. Uh, just drag and drop it here. And then we're going to add one more maybe just one more bar chart and or a line chart, right? In the x-axis, we are gonna put the date table, the x the x-axis we're gonna put the date table, and in the y-axis we are gonna put the total giving amount. Right. So let's see. So the way you're going to do that is uh, the way the drill down is going to work is uh, let's hide this for now, right? The way you're going to do that is when you click drill through and you go to you select page 2 here, it's going to filter these details by. So if you notice, the filter here is after school tutoring. So for after school tutoring, you are seeing how much donations we have given by program name. So here's an example of how you do that. So similarly for, let's say I want to do a drill through for a senior outreach. When you click drill through and go to that page, it is going to show you the total giving for the senior outreach campaign, right? So that is an example of how you do a drill through. When you click that, and you could actually build a table here also with key attributes, and it's going to show you data pertaining to a particular program in that table when you do a drill through, right? So you can actually go to a particular page and look at specific data by your campaign using the drill through feature, right? So, I mean, that is pretty much all I had for today. We covered building data model relationships with your data. Then we talked about merging data together. We talked about appending data together and, a kind of mapping one column from a different table with a column in another table, right? So that's what is appending, and we have merged the data that we created into our donations table, right? So we did merging, we did build some measures, we did drill through. All of these are kind of some of the advanced concepts, but it all starts with your data, how you build these relationships. Once you have the relationships taken care of, you will be able to kind of build your graphs, which can actually drill down for you and show you relevant information, right? So that is all I have. I'm going to pause here and open for any questions.
If anyone has any questions, you can drop it in the chat. You can do the Q&A, or you can even raise your hand and I can unmute you. In the meantime, I am dropping the survey in the chat, so please make sure you are opening that up before we log out. We got a thank you from Bryce. All right, well, I don't see any questions coming through. Sid, thank you so much. Always really amazing to see the power of Power BI. So thank you for demoing all of that. I know there's a lot of information, so the slide deck as well as this recording will be shared with you so you guys can drill down those if you'd like. And Sid mentioned a few times about tech therapy. So as you are working through your Power BI, if you do need some of that additional one-on-one support, we do have volunteers who are ready to go in the Power BI space to support you. So don't hesitate to reach out if you ever want that support. That is it for today. Thanks again, Sid. Everyone else, expect that follow-up email from me, and have a great rest of your day.
Good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.